Hi, everyone. Today's social language lesson is on generosity. And before we get started, I want to talk about the word generous and what it means to be generous. The definition of generous is to be freely giving. And as we're listening to today's story, I want you to think about who is generous in this story. And the opposite of generous is stingy, which means that you're not freely giving. We're going to talk a little bit about that at the end as well. So let's get started with today's lesson. I'm going to start by sharing our story so that you can see it. This is on generosity. Josie honestly didn't know if she was nervous or excited. She hopped off the front steps and back up again, waiting for Mickey to come down the street. The whole school was participating in a fundraiser. They were trying to raise money for the people in Oak Grove who had lost their homes in a tornado. Many of the families were staying in a shelter while their homes were being rebuilt. People were working hard to collect money to help, and Josie and Mickey were among them. Finally, Mickey rode his bike up to her house. Josie could tell he was excited. Ready to get out there and work? He asked. Josie jumped off the step a final time, and the two raced down the street. Many of the neighbors were outside, working in their yards. The tornado hadn't hit there, but the winds had knocked down the trees, and people were busily cleaning up. However, almost all of them stopped what they were doing to listen to Mickey and Josie. As soon as they heard the words, money for the tornado victims, they went inside and brought out money. Josie was thrilled as the money piled up. Most people gave at least $20. Some people wrote checks and some gave cash. One little boy even gave them a jar of dimes that he'd been saving for a year. Mickey and Josie took turns carrying it. By lunchtime, they'd covered more than 2 miles and both of them were starving. Let's just go to two more houses and then we'll take a break for lunch, Mickey suggested. Josie agreed. The jar of dimes was getting heavier by the second. No one was home at the next house. They crossed the street and tried the next one, which was a tiny cottage in need of painting. An old man was slowly raking up leaves and twigs. Hello, he said. Josie explained what they were doing, and the old man stopped working to listen. Let me see what I can do, he said. He went inside. Josie and Mickey waited. After a long time, the old man came out. He handed Mickey some crumbled bills and said, There you are, young man. Then he went back to work. Thanks, Josie said. They walked away from the house and Mickey looked at the money. $3? He asked. That's not very much. I bet that jar of dimes has way more than that. And that was from a little kid. They'd waited that long for just $3? Josie rolled her eyes. Her mother had lunch waiting. The kids ate hungrily while her mom counted the money. She uncrumpled the $3 bills and said, Who gave you these? Josie explained about the old man. Her mother asked, Was it an old white house with a big tree in front? Josie nodded. Mickey said, I can't believe how cheap that old man is. Josie's mom shook her head. He shouldn't have given any money away, she said. He can't afford it. He's very poor, and $3 could buy food for a day or two. Josie looked up from her sandwich. Suddenly, those $3 meant a lot more to her. Mickey was looking at her from across the table. Maybe we should do something nice for him, he said. We could help him rake his yard? Josie's mom went to the refrigerator. I'll pack some snacks, and you can share them with him, she suggested. Let's take a look at our comprehension questions before we move along. This says, to put the events of the story in order. Josie and Mickey eat lunch. The old man gives them $3. A tornado goes through Oak Grove. Josie waits for Mickey. Why were Josie and Mickey going out? To collect money because of the tornado. So, a tornado goes through Oak Grove. That happened first. What happened next? Josie waits for Mickey because they're going to collect money. What happens while they're collecting money? They meet the old man who gives them $3. Finally, what happens after the man gives them the $3? They go to Josie's and they have lunch. So Josie and Mickey eat lunch. What is a tornado? Our story doesn't exactly share what a tornado is. However, it did mention that the tornado didn't hit their neighborhood, but that the high winds knocked around leaves, which is why people were cleaning up their yards. So we can predict or infer that it was C, a windstorm. Number 3, who made lunch for Josie and Mickey? The old man in the cottage? Josie's mother? They made lunch, or a diner? Did you pick B? Josie's mother. Lunch was waiting for them when they got home. What were the neighbors doing in their yards? Cleaning up, building a bonfire, collecting money, or painting their houses? Well, there had been a tornado nearby, and the high winds caused lots of leaves in the neighborhood. They were all cleaning up. Number 5, what do you think will happen next in the story? Do you remember how Mickey and Josie felt bad that the old man gave the $3 that he really didn't have? What did they say that they could do for him? They offered to go and rake his leaves. What was Mom going to do? She was going to pack some snacks to share. She had made the comment that the $3 could have bought him food for a day or two. So I think that bringing the snacks was maybe to make up for the fact that he might have been giving away his grocery money. These next sections here are for you to work on with a parent or a friend as you're staying at home working. This first one says to write a list of ways you can be generous, and we'll talk a little bit about this in just a moment. This next part here says, write about what you think happens after Josie and Mickey go back to the old man's house. Write a list of reasons people might be in need of money for food, clothes, or shelter. And then finally, pretend you are making a shopping list for someone who has lost everything in a tornado. Write down everything you can think of that they would need to replace. Let's go back here and talk about ways that we can be generous. Generous means to be freely giving. I can think of 2 people in this story who were very generous. There was the little boy who had a jar full of dimes that he had been saving for an entire year. He gave everything. He was very generous. But to be generous, it doesn't necessarily mean that you have a lot to give. It just means that you're willing to give and that you give freely. What are some ways that we can be generous right now? Right now, we're all kind of stuck inside our homes, and thinking about ways that we could be generous might be ways that we'd be generous after we're able to leave our home. In the meantime, some of the things we might be able to do, maybe we could go through our closet and clean out clothes that we're no longer wearing because we've outgrown. I do want to talk again about generous versus stingy. If you're giving away a shirt because it's got holes in it and it's dirty and tattered and you're not going to wear it anymore, is that being very generous? No, that's just getting rid of old junk. But what if you have a shirt that is your absolute favorite and you really don't want to give it away, but you know somebody else could really use it? So you freely give it. That's being generous. Another way that you could be generous is by collecting toys. There could be toys that you loved playing with when you were younger, and now maybe you're a little bit older and you want to be able to give toys to another child. What about the man in the story who was very poor? Maybe there's someone in your neighborhood that doesn't have a lot of resources right now. They might not have a lot of food. Maybe you could collect some extra food in your pantry and put it in a box and leave it outside their front doorstep. Would that be generous? That's freely giving. And then finally, a way that you can be generous is with your time. Maybe you can call a friend or a family member that is living alone right now and they don't have anyone to talk to. Maybe you're going to read a story via FaceTime or Zoom with one of your friends. Maybe you're going to help mom or dad in the house, fold laundry, do dishes, give up your time freely. That's being generous. There's an old saying that says that all gave some, but some gave all. And right now, it's our time for all of us to give some, which means that we stay home and we keep everyone safe. But we also want to think about those that gave all, our doctors and nurses that are taking care of others right now. Some of them have passed because they've caught the virus. And so we want to think of them as well. I hope that you take time to be generous today. If you have any questions, leave a comment or a question here, and I'll talk to you next week. Bye now.